You know, I wasn't expecting to jump back into Megaton so soon. You see, the original plan was that I was gonna head back to the franchise after I finished covering the Devil May Cry games, but to my utter surprise, Atlus ended up remastering the first Raidou game, Raidou vs. the Soulless Army. And to be frank here, I wasn't feeling overly excited about this announcement. Now don't get me wrong, I've been meaning to check this game out for a while now. The premise and overall vibe seemed interesting, and the idea of using demons for investigations sounded really cool. But I don't know, for one reason or another, I never took the time to sit down with this game. Now I could easily blame it on my backlog that's as tall as Mount Everest, but there's also this feeling I have that I might not enjoy it. But today we're changing that, folks, as we're going to be covering Raidou and the Mystery of the Soulless Army to, overall check out the game like we usually do, but also kind of just, decipher my feelings on it. Am I being cautiously optimistic about it, or am I just being so cautious because I've kind of been disappointed lately about, just games in general and this current hellscape that we live in? Who knows, but we'll find out eventually. And who knows, maybe I can get this out sometime in July or August right after the fighting game video. Fuck. Released back in June 19, 2025, Raidou and the Mystery of the Soulless Army has you playing as the titular character Raidou Kuzunoha, a devil summoner slash detective who's tasked with finding a missing girl, but suddenly comes across something much bigger happening in the shadows. This game was originally released on the PS2 in 2006, and compared to the other two Devil Summoner games that were turn-based, this and its sequel were instead an action RPG of all things, something that the team hadn't really done before. But this challenge was intentional, as the team had a desire to try something new. And you can tell, as according to Kaneko, one of the challenges they faced was how to combine demon summoning with deductive reasoning. And now all of a sudden, I want another Devil Summoner game that takes elements from Ace Attorney, or more accurately, Ace Attorney Investigations. Now that right there, that would be the coolest shit ever. Now, despite certain things not being as good, namely the combat, Raidou vs. the Soulless Army did well enough to the point where there's a cult following for this game and its sequel. And if you've been in the Megaton side of the internet for a while now, you've more than likely seen people asking for these games to be ported to modern consoles, especially because of how much it costs to own. Ooh, Jesus. Hell, let's go even further. Back in 2022, Atlus held a survey asking what games should be remade, with 72.1% of people asking for the first Raidou game to get that treatment. Now, I'm gonna be a little delusional here, but with this game, the Etrian Collection and Persona 3 Reload either being remade slash remastered, surely we're gonna finally get a remake slash remaster of my baby, that is the Persona 2 duology. God damn it! Now, before we start things proper, let me give y'all a quick disclaimer real quick. This review is mainly going to be focused on the remaster. While I was working on this video, I didn't think to go and cover the original, as I thought the changes weren't too significant. That was until I actually started doing research and learned just how much things have changed. The graphics, story, and especially the gameplay. The amount of changes alone is enough to be its own video. Now, I love you guys, I really do. But I don't think I have the confidence to be able to cover all of the changes here without making myself want to cry in the fetal position. But no need to worry, y'all. When the day comes for me to cover the sequel, Raidou vs. King Abaddon, I'll also be covering the original as well. Which might happen sometime this year, but no promises. But with that out of the way, let's go and cover Raidou and the Mystery of the Soulless Army. I'm not gonna hold you though, I kinda missed the versus tagline. Kinda gave it a little bit of oomph to it. It's currently the Taisho era of Japan, and things are changing. Telephones are popping up, cars are becoming the new mode of transportation, and more people are thinking about science rather than the occult. Despite that, some things haven't changed, and when the game begins, we meet our protagonist, who's taking a test to be a part of the Kuzunoha clan, a clan of devil summoners tasked with protecting the capital. And after passing said test, he ends up getting a new name, Raidou Kuzunoha the 14th. And he also gets a cat as a partner named Godo. Hey, that's kinda neat. Where do I sign up? I would like a free cat. But that isn't where the story begins. It actually starts with Raidou's pseudo guardian Narumi gets a call from a young girl named Kaya Daidoji who pleads for us to kill her. But just as we're about to find out why, she gets kidnapped by mysterious soldiers in red, with Raidou fighting them off to no avail. And from here, our mission is pretty simple: find Kaya Daidoji. But that ends up being easier said than done, as throughout the first half of the game, Raidou and his companions come across weird events happening across the capital, from monsters with red capes running around and terrorizing people to these little red things called Hirokos, the physical manifestation of fear and despair within humans. And while all all of this is happening, we also have to deal with a Dark Summoner who's always there when these events happen. That Dark Summoner is later revealed to be Rasputin. Yes, that Rasputin. If y'all know just enough history to know who this man is, y'all are probably gonna be confused as all hell to why he's here. And spoiler alert, he's a cyborg. I would say more, but that would be spoiling things. During one of our confrontations with him, it's revealed that Kaya is being held in Kasamidai in order to complete something known as the Super Soldier Project, and through a whistleblower named Sadakichi, as well as the creator of the program Mudakata, we learned that the project aims to protect Japan by using undead soldiers, and in order to complete said project, they need Kaya, as whenever a woman from the Daijoshi family turns 16, they get possessed by a demon. Wow, that's fucked. We later save Kaya from Mudakata, but during the search for an artifact that the general needs to complete his plans, that little family curse conveniently kicks in with her getting possessed and vanishing alongside the artifact. So now, not only do we have to try to find Kaya and get rid of the demon possessing her, we also have to stop Mudakata from enacting his plans. Is it just me, or is anyone else feeling a little overwhelmed right now? Before we even get a chance to, you know, sit down and process things, we end up getting coerced by Sadakichi to help the Yadagarasu remove a curse placed on their leader, Lord Takagi, by Mudakata and a rival clan known as the Kinamitsu. How, you may ask? By taking on the curse itself as a sacrifice. Is it too late to quit? Damn it! After finding the source of the curse and defeating it, we end up getting a few more details relating to Mudakata and the Super Soldier Project. One of the more interesting details we learned is that the Hirokos are the reason why we've been seeing those soldiers in red popping up across the capital, and it's all possible thanks to Wadden 1, a radio tower that's amplifying the negative emotions felt from the people of the capital. And with this new lead, Raidou heads to the tower to stop Mudakata, but eventually learns the truth of, well, a lot. And yeah, from here on out, this game quickly goes from being a mystery / conspiracy to your standard Megaton affair. Is what I would say if things didn't end up going completely left field. I'm not joking either. Nothing can compare you for the amount of shit that's about to happen. And if I had to compare it to anything, it would be similar to the lead up to the final dungeon in Digital Devil Saga 2. Maybe not as esoteric, but it's still insane. During our confrontation with Mudakata and Wadden 1, who, spoiler alert, is actually Sukuna Hikona taking over Mudakata's dead body, Jesus Christ, we learned that the true purpose of the Super Soldier Project wasn't to protect the people of Japan, but instead to get revenge against the Yadagarasu, who I guess must have fucked them over in the past to the point of creating this elaborate ass plan. And to achieve this, they need to gather up enough Hirokos to create the Soulless God, a powerful warship capable of destroying entire militaries. But the Hirokos are only one half of the equation, as they also need a demon inside Kaya Daidoji. As that demon isn't really a demon, instead is a time traveler from the future that was able to supply them with the materials needed to create the Soulless God. And with the artifact Kaya had, they're now able to supply an infinite amount of energy for the god thanks to the Taitsu satellite. And wait, it gets even more insane, as after being sent to an alternate timeline thanks to Rasputin, who by the way is a time traveling cyborg, I just did not know how to include that in here, we made an alternate version of Raidou and Goto, who reveals the possibility that the time traveler could be a Raidou from the distant future. You see how crazy shit is getting? Guess what? It gets even crazier. After making it back to our timeline, we confront Sukuna Hikona for one last time, where during his evil monologue, he unleashes the Soulless God onto the capital, and despite later defeating Sukuna, there's still the problem of dealing with the warship, as it can't be destroyed unless we get rid of the Taitsu satellite. With the help of an eccentric scientist named Dr. Tsukumo, and the reluctant help of Rasputin, Raidou and the others managed to create a rocket ship capable of getting to the satellite. However, the only way to stop it is by destroying it from the inside, which we managed to achieve by sending one of our demons up there alongside Goto, who volunteers to control the ship. But after destroying the core and with no way back, Goto ends up dying in the explosion. With the Soulless God out of commission, the capital is finally at peace. That is, until a random high school girl appears out of nowhere and oh wait, that's Kaya. Oh shit, it isn't over yet, is it? Kaya appears with a copy of the Soulless God and challenges Raidou to determine the course of history, and while trying to figure out where to find them, the Goto from the other timeline directs Raidou to use the Amatsu Kaneki, an artifact that allows the user to essentially travel through space and time, and after gathering the energy for it, we end up in the Akarana corridor and go through it to eventually find Kaya. Now, before we move on, are y'all ready for the absolute bombshell that is about to be dropped? And when I mean ready, I mean you is sitting in your chair, ass glued to your seat. You're in your car, you're in school, you're at work, which if you're in any of those situations, lock in, motherfucker, but still, Are y'all ready? And boy, I hope you are, because the future Raidou we've been chasing throughout this entire game is from the timeline where the events of SMT2 takes place. Yes, you heard me right. SMT2 is hella relevant for this story. Fed up with being a tool for the messianic fate after the Yata Kurose was disbanded, Raidou the 40th ended up using a special technique to transfer their memories into the women of the Daijoji family with the goal of changing the past. Mind you, that was the shortened version. If I were to try to explain everything, that would be a whole video in and out of itself. Regardless, we defeat Raidou the 40th alongside their multiple phases and send their asses back to their own timeline. With Kaya finally free and the Soulless God out of commission, the capital is finally safe. Fucked up beyond recognition, but safe nonetheless, until the eventual second game with this ominous crow. Oh boy. Jesus Christ, this story is a goddamn trip. Just when you think certain things are clear, you get more info that just keeps adding more and more layers to everything. And like I mentioned earlier, I've only been skimming through this. If I were to go through everything that this story goes through, we would be here for a while. Regardless though, this story, it isn't half bad. Trippy as fuck, but not half bad. Despite the premise being nothing unique, the way things play out in the story had me invested. And sure, there's problems, but for reasons that will be clear later, it's kinda complicated. As for the things the story does right, there are a couple of things. First of all, there's the characters who really stand out here. Some of my favorites include Dr. Tsukumo, an eccentric scientist who, despite being a little out there, has a dream to build a rocket that could go to space. Next is Rasputin, who has to be the most silliest villain I've seen yet in the game. While he can and does lock in during the game's more serious moments, he has just as many moments where he's on some whimsical shit. My favorite is at the beginning of his boss fight, where he starts dancing in those little Matryoshka dolls, like, yeah, I'll try to get a piece of this, you bitch. Finally is Narumi, who, despite coming off as a comic relief, has a decent amount of depth to him, a lot of it coming from his relationship with Munakata, who he respected as a great man. And as the events of the game takes place, you can see how conflicted Narumi becomes when he realizes Munakata is involved. While it doesn't go too deep, it's still interesting to see him go through great lengths to discover the truth. Speaking of which, there's also the villains, specifically Munakata and Raidou the 40th. Both of these guys are characters that I can't help but feel bad for. With Munakata, he had his plan of wanting to protect the people of Japan getting hijacked by a god who wanted to do the opposite. It's one of those things where you can kind of see Munakata himself as one of those little sympathetic villains, a villain who would sacrifice others to protect something he loves. That is, until you realize the imperial undertones of it, and when you add in Japan's history with it. And finally, there's Raidou the 40th, who easily stole the show. I know there are other Megaten games that pull characters from the mainline game, but the way they did it here by having them come from the events before SMT2 did nothing but make me ask a bunch of questions. What does this mean for the timeline? Did the stuff that Raidou the 40th do drastically change everything? And what the hell was the Kuzunoha clan doing before the events of SMT1? As interesting as those questions are, they don't really mean anything. Unless they're in the same world or a direct sequel, there really isn't a concise timeline for all the Megaten games. And with how self-contained many of the stories are in Megaten, it'll be kind of hard to connect everything in the way that would make sense. Like, prime example, right? I would love to try to see someone try to connect Majin Tensei with something like Devil Survivor, or what else? Devil Summoner, or honestly any Megaten game you can think of. That right there sounds like a pain in the ass to go through. But one of the other things this game does well in is the world building. Similar to most Megaten games, the world building is one of the best things about it, and that's especially the case for this game. Despite the game taking place in between World War I and II, there's a lot of stuff in here that feels very relatable to what we're going through now. You got conflicts happening across the world with people fearing every day that it'll grow to another world war, new technology being created that is negatively affecting people's jobs, and the general fact that despite technological advancements, people are still struggling. And when you add all this stuff up, it's enough to make you wonder whether or not we'll actually be able to make it to the future. And I feel like this game handles all of the like doom and gloom situations in a way that's optimistic through Raidou. While he barely speaks throughout the story, the game shows you that this man is willing to do anything for the people of the capital. They show this in a lot of the side quests as well as in the main story, from Raidou's overall goal of finding Kaya to helping people like a rickshaw runner named Denpachi, Kaya's uncle Kiyoshi, and the owner of Konoya. And when you make it into the end of the game, you can see his passion rub off on the other characters as we see them being inspired by Raidou and what he's done. If it did anything, it made me feel a little inspired in a way. Even if you can't do a lot, you can still do something to help people. And even in this horrible time period that we're currently living in, something like that I feel is very much needed. Overall, I enjoyed the story. It's a goddamn trip that does take a bit to get going, but it's a trip that I can't deny is interesting. Now, I mentioned earlier that I had problems with this story, and there were a couple things here that almost made me drop this game entirely. I was gonna go on a rant about how much I hated the first 4 chapters and how tedious it was to find Kaya, which is somewhat true, but after taking a minute to, not do that, I realized that besides it taking a minute to, kind of get going, a lot of my issues were more related to the gameplay. And let me say this now, if you are expecting this game right here to be on the same caliber as Kingdom Hearts, Tales of, or hell, even Devil May Cry, I'm sorry, but you ain't getting that here. The best way to describe the gameplay for Mr. of the Soulless Army is that it's trying to do something different while still adding that Megaton flair to it. Like most Megaton games, you'll be spending most of your time recruiting demons and fusing them together to make even stronger ones. And coming from the Devil Summoner franchise, there's also the loyalty system. For those who don't know, in the first 2 Devil Summoner games, demons don't automatically follow your every order, and to change that, you have to boost that demon's loyalty to use them more effectively. But unlike the first 2 games where you have to boost a demon's loyalty to the max, in this game you can control your demon no matter what their loyalty is. But if you do raise it to the max, that demon will gain a new passive skill that can be transferred to other demons. And alongside this, you gain loyalty points, which after gaining a certain amount will either give Raidou a new title or increase the amount of demons he can have. Overall, these are some nice changes, but it doesn't stop there, as this game gives demons more to do overall than just dish out damage, and they do this by giving them investigation skills. In the Mystery of the Soulless Army, demons have investigation skills that can be used to help Raidou in his, well, investigation. You need to try to get an item in a hard to reach spot, using demon to get it for you. Trying to find an item for someone but you have no clue where it could be, use a demon to reveal hidden items in the area. And let's say you're trying to talk to someone but they're either too angry or depressed to talk, use a demon to either cool their ass down or lift their spirit. Alongside this, Raidou can also have his demons do solo investigations, and in some cases you can even fight other demons using the one that you sent out. Granted, it isn't anything crazy. Solo investigations are mainly used to solve puzzles and go through places that Raidou can't go to. When it comes to that demon on demon action, it only happens twice, once for a side quest and the other happening towards the end of the game. There's also one other thing they can do, being stealth strikes, which can be used to get the drop on enemies. Hell, if you're strong enough, you can even kill these guys in one hit. Just send them out and give them a little bitch, and voila, you get your XP and money without having to do shit. Even though I would have loved to see them do more when it comes to investigations, the idea of using them for something other than battle is sick in my opinion. But at the end of the day, demons are still used for battle, and on top of the usual stuff you can do, you can also tell them to just do physical moves or safeguard them from strong attacks. Overall, demons are given a lot more to do than most Megaton games, but what can our boy Raidou do? Well, compared to everyone else, he can do a lot. Starting things off, Raidou has 3 main ways of attacking, being his sword, gun, and summoner skills. When using his sword, Raidou can do both light and heavy attacks. While the light attacks don't do much damage, they do fill Raidou's magnetite gauge, which you can kind of think of as being MP for your demons. As for heavy attacks, its only purpose is to lay down the pain, and I would highly recommend to use them alongside your light attacks, because trust me, it'll help you so damn much for some of the fights in this game. Next, you have his gun, but unless they're weak to gun attacks, it's better to use it to temporarily stun targets, especially with how slippery some of these guys can be. Also, quick side tangent here, but how the fuck can Raidou do a 5-round burst with a revolver? Last time I checked, these motherfuckers were semi-automatic, and unless I'm missing something, that shouldn't be possible unless they did some supernatural shit to it. Finally, are summoner skills that can either be used to lay down the pain or help support you and your demons in battle. While a few of the skills are given to you as you progress through the story, a majority of them can be obtained through sword alchemy, which is also how you acquire new weapons. On top of this, Raidou also has access to 3 new abilities, being Devil's Feint, Devil's Bane, and finally Spirit Slash. Devil's Feint is more or less a defensive skill that lets you move from the front of the enemy to the back to both dodge and attack and continue racking up damage. When I first saw this in the trailer, the only thing I could think of was the reversal command in Kingdom Hearts 2, and boy, I love that command to death. Next is Devil's Bane, a counter attack where if you dodge just as an enemy is about to attack, you can use it to deal extra damage and get more magnetite so that your demons can continue to use their skills. While it can be hard to pull off sometimes, especially when there's a lot going on, when you do manage to pull it off, it's so damn satisfying. And if you don't trigger it via a dodge, you and your demons can just wail on them to trigger it. But I don't know if it's just me, but it doesn't happen as often. Finally, you have the Spirit Slash, which is a full screen attack that does a ton of damage, and if you're strong enough, this shit can turn into a screen nuke. In my opinion, this skill right here is one of the most important tools in your arsenal, especially against some of the bosses in this game. More on that in a minute. When you add everything together, it actually can be pretty fun. But then you go through a couple chapters, and boy, do you quickly start to see the cracks and, well, everything. While Mystery of the Soulless Army introduces a lot of cool things for the player to do, it's bogged down by the fact that after a while, it starts to feel repetitive and kind of boring. Each chapter has you going through a series of fetch quests, defeating a demon or two that stands in your way, and at the end you fight whatever the boss for that chapter is. Rinse and repeat until you beat the game. Granted, some chapters aren't as bad as others, but it can start to add up, especially if you decide to do what I did and try to push through it, which, by the way, don't do that. That is the quickest way to get burned out by a game. Despite all of this, the game does give you a means to step away from the loop through its side content. There's the side quests that, despite having similar issues to what you go through in the main story, aren't as egregious. While most of them are fetch quests, there are quests where you'll have to fight a boss or a horde of enemies. So let me say this now, be mindful of the latter, because that shit will fuck you up if you're not prepared. Then there's the arrow rifts, which are basically battles that can give you more money and experience needed to level yourself and your demons up. Plus, for every 5 of these rifts you end up destroying, you can get items to sell or use to boost your overall stats and level. And to be honest, you should just do the rest for the money alone, as this game loves to starve you of it, especially early on. But like I said earlier, the side content really helps to break the loop of doing the same thing over and over again. Though despite that, the game still has a way of making things annoying, like for example, the nether gates. Now, to be fair, they are easy to deal with, as all you have to do is just hit the gate with its weakness, bada bing, bada boom, the thing is dead. But this game really loves to throw these gates in the most annoying places possible, right? So like, I'm trying to get a move on, we're going through the dungeon, and then bam, I have to go through 3 of them bitches just to get to where I was going. I guarantee you, these could have easily been replaced with a mini boss. But one of the main things that really makes it going through this game annoying are the battles themselves. Battles in this game mostly boils down to exposing the enemy's weakness, then beating the shit out of them like they owe you money. For the first few chapters, it's pretty fun, especially when you're trying out new skills. But after a while, it starts getting stale, and it doesn't help that you don't have a lot of skills to really spice things up. Even though Raidou does have a lot of skills he can use, the majority of them are passive skills, leaving 14 active skills that Raidou has access to. Even then, I mainly use the 4 elemental skills and 2 support skills like Magnetize and Zeal, the latter 2 feeling almost necessary to an extent. Magnetize can restore 50% of your max Magnetite, which was great for when you need to be on the defense, and Zeal can cure and prevent you from getting any more status elements in the game, where getting one can lead to your death. Other than that, and using some of the almighty and physical skills, I didn't really go out of my way to use them, especially since they didn't contribute to the fact that demons have shields that gotta be broken down in order to do some meaningful damage. And this shit is even worse when you have to go through the bosses in this game. And let me tell you something, they are on some shit. Not only can these bosses range from being somewhat easy to difficult as hell, these bosses also feel like damage sponges. No matter what I hit them with, it feels like I do dick for damage. And mind you, even when I'm at a high level, they feel like they take forever to take down. And just like the enemies in this game, you gotta break their shield as well to do any meaningful damage. Christ, I hate this shit. Now, before we end things, I do have one little thing to talk about real quick. I mentioned earlier that the bosses in this game can range from being somewhat easy to being difficult. Like the first boss, Ishimarukin, is one cruel motherfucker who had me questioning if I was ass or not. But then you have the twin brothers you fight in chapter 5, which was actually interesting. But out of all the bosses, Mishaguchi has to be the worst one. Now, imagine finding a boss that 1 has an attack that is both hard to dodge and can poison you. 2 can basically turn half the arena into a minefield of status ailments, and finally can put you in a blender of status ailments and raw strength, and no matter how safe you play, will send you to a game over screen. Fuck you, Misaguchi, you flaccid piece of shit. So before I did my playthrough for this video, I ended up doing a sort of initial playthrough to kind of see how I would enjoy the game, and on a more, more so for personal enjoyment and not for, a video or anything. And let me tell you something, I did not enjoy it one bit. lot. There was things that I enjoyed, like the story and overall world of the game, but when it came to the gameplay, I wasn't jiving with it, and it doesn't help that I basically played this game every day trying to experience everything, and boy, that right there is a one-way ticket to getting burnt out. So with the playthrough I did for this video, what are my feelings on it now? Did it change? Is it still the same? Well, I could definitely say that I liked it, but I'm definitely not itching to play this shit anytime soon. Again, there's good qualities to this game, but going through the gameplay and everything with it has me hesitant. Though while I was working on the fighting game video and still figuring out how to talk about Raidou, Sega released an update that fixed a good chunk of this game's issues. They rebalanced some of the bosses like Misaguchi to be less annoying. They finally allowed you to sell demon materials you get from battle, which is a major improvement and helps to kind of, stop the whole grinding feeling for money. And finally, they shut Godot the fuck up. Now listen, I love him, but if he tells me to use my gun one more time...
Close your mouth.
Overall, I think this game is pretty cool. Despite the issues with its gameplay, it was still fun getting to fight demons in real time. And if you love Megaten, then boy, I guarantee you're gonna love this nutty ass story. Hell, it might even make those who haven't played a Megaten game before interested in checking the franchise out. Now, would I recommend buying this game at full price? If you're more interested in the story and are willing to tough out some of the battles here, then you'll do just fine. But if you care a lot about the gameplay and have played other action RPGs like I have, then you're better off buying this game when it goes on sale. Or don't, it's your money. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching till the end of the video. Alright, before we talk about the elephant in the room, I do want to wish you guys a happy new year, and hopefully it has been doing, it's been doing pretty well, treating you guys okay despite everything happening, which is chaotic to say the least. But to address the elephant in the room, ladies and gentlemen, non-binary peeps, we have finally made it to 500 subscribers on here. Yeah, pretty big milestone. For some it might not be, but to me, considering that we're almost halfway to 1,000 subscribers, I'm not gonna lie to you, I am feeling very, very, very motivated right now, to say the least. To go off script a bit, I really am happy about this because I at one point almost thought about quitting content creation altogether. I did not have the drive nor the energy for these past 2 years to consistently make videos, but seeing people still support me even though my videos have been kind of shaky in terms of like release date and quality, but seeing people still be here and then new people coming over, it's just, I don't know, it fills me with a sense of motivation that I don't think I have gotten since I first started this. So for that, guys, I would like to thank you guys so much. Again, I know I keep on thanking you guys a lot, but you truly mean a lot, especially with me hopefully, being able to do this full time. Because if I'm being honest with you, I think I'd rather talk about games right now, games, than do all of the other mundane shit society wants from us. I probably shouldn't have said that, but you get the point. I would not be here without you guys, and I can't wait to get back to making more videos, hopefully a little bit more consistently, but no promises. Well, next time I see you guys, we're going to be jumping right back into Ace Attorney with Trials and Tribulation, the end of one trilogy to eventually go on to the next, which for reference is Apollo Justice. And boy, that one is gonna be like always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you guys enjoyed the video. Hit the little bell notification so you guys know when the next video is coming out. I'm also streaming, so of course if you guys want to go check that out, you can check me out here on YouTube and Twitch every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday at either 9 p.m. or 4 p.m. If anything changes, make sure to peep the community post for when I drop my stream schedule, or follow me on Bluesky for a little bit of updates, and also me just talking about random shit, so yay. And make sure to stay safe, hydrate, have each other's back out there during these tiring times, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!